God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 4 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week number 7 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful but nighttime Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California. And Brad, I have to tell you, we are recording in the middle of the Thursday night football game, and on a personal note, I think it's time to retire Mr. Al Michaels.
Yeah, we had an interesting week last week, didn't we? I mean, there was some games that I think everybody that I know, anyways, didn't expect to see. That Jets Eagles thing took everybody, I think, by surprise. The Giants really hanging with the Bills and giving them a pretty good game. I think that surprised a lot of people. And then, of course, we had the one other upset. Can't remember what it is right off the top of my head, but there was 2 or 3 finishes that were just bizarro world. I mean, who would have figured? And now there's no undefeated teams remaining left in the league. And fortunately for me, I've had 3 good weeks in a row now. So I managed to grab the lead away from you. I wrestled the lead by 1 game. So, get used to it.
I was waiting for what week it would be before Brad got to talk about how he's beating me. I think you have me by 2 games now. It's a 2-game lead if I read the numbers right. And Mr. Hoyseth, just an absolutely fantastic week last week. What did you go, 7-3?
No, I think I went 6-4. I went 7-3 the week before, and so that's 3 weeks in a row where I've won 6 or 7 games.
Yeah,
which that's pretty tough to do. I think it's a 1-game lead though. I'm 26. I'm 2 games over, and you're even 500. So I got 26 wins. You got 25. So
no, you're absolutely on fire. But I mean, seriously, what can you do when like the San Francisco 49ers suddenly don't show up, and the Philadelphia Eagles suddenly don't show up, and they allow the Miami Dolphins of the old 1972 Dolphins to enjoy their champagne. And then you got the Buffalo Bills just completely laying an egg on national television against arguably one of the worst teams in the National Football League. One of the teams that should be trying to get Caleb Martin as their starting quarterback next season. And I don't know if you heard this.
Caleb Williams or Caleb Martin? I don't know.
Caleb Williams. Yeah, I don't know if you heard this week, but Caleb actually came out and said, whatever team drafts me, I want to be able to get a piece of the ownership of that team. It was crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. The kid is. I'm not sure, Dave. I mean, I've heard some things. That's just a weird statement to make, especially coming off a game where you threw a couple of picks and lost to Notre Dame. I mean, I would think humble would maybe be the spot you should be in right now. But
he hasn't looked good in a month. I mean, it's been, 3 or 4. I mean, some of those other games they could have lost too. So
yeah, it's one thing to beat Oregon State. It's another thing to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? And so
right.
let's come down to earth, Caleb.
Okay, all right. Brad's bringing us back down to earth. Why don't you go and kick this off with our top 10 games worth spending some money on, Mr. Hoyseth?
Yeah, Packers at Broncos. That's my first one. 2 teams that have recently come down to earth. The Packers are a 1-point favorite on the road in Denver. I think this is what the Packers would call a get-right game, Dave. They've struggled offensively, but there's nothing better to get you right than the Denver Broncos, Dave, because they're like last in just about every category imaginable on defense. And so I'm going to take the Packers. I feel like they're going to come back this week. They're going to bounce back, get a win in Denver. It was only a 1 point, so it's basically a pick 'em. So I'm going to take the Packers. I just think they're a better football team.
I've got to believe that the Broncos are going to get something right this week. I just haven't really been impressed by Jordan Love at all. In fact, I just dropped him from my fantasy football team entirely, but he was a backup. But I was torn on this one a little bit. I could go either way. I think most people would go with the Packers. I just have this sense that, Russell Wilson's playing well enough. I know he had a bad game last time, but he's not the problem. And, I think the defense played a little bit better. They gained a little momentum in their last game. It's at home. Who knows what shade of orange the Denver Broncos are going to wear. I'm going to go with the home team in this one.
Man, what happened to that Denver defense since the great Vic Fangio left? I mean, it has done. They're like last in almost everything, Dave. Russell can only do so much. His defense just isn't getting any stops, and the Packers, they're about ready to get healthy, I would think. Aaron Jones should be getting healthy now, and some of the guys there. So I don't know. I just got a feeling on this one that it's a get-right game, as they call it.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of bad defenses, the New York Football Giants are going to be home this week, Brad, in the Meadowlands, doing battle against the team to be named later, the Washington Commanders. I can't wait to see what Magic Johnson and the rest of that ownership group actually come up with during the offseason. But it's a 1.5 spread on this one in favor of the Commanders. I like Sam Howell probably significantly more than you do. And then I think Brian Daboll is just losing it. He showed up his quarterback pretty bad on national television at the end of a half. I don't know if you remember seeing what he, it's just, the Bill Parcells era is over. It's like, you can't do that. I wonder how much of the locker room he's starting to lose at this point. I've got the Commanders winning this one actually pretty easily, just simply because they're a better football team.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the other direction. I don't think much of the Commanders. I think the Giants are a desperate team. They showed signs of playing better football last week. I know you like Thurston Howell over there, the quarterback for the Commanders, but I think it's just time. It's time, and I don't mind Tyrod Taylor. I think he's a dangerous threat as a running quarterback at times. So I think he makes them a little more explosive than Daniel Jones, who I think just hangs onto the ball in the pocket way too long.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely does. I like Tyrod Taylor too. I don't know what he was thinking, checking to a running play. I could see why Daboll was upset, but I mean that just didn't make any sense to me. But I think the Commanders have more upside. This is a game they should win. The Giants are at this point just falling apart.
All right, well, let's go into my second game, which is the Lions at the Ravens. Your Detroit Lions, Dave. They're playing some great football. and they're at Baltimore, who's a 3-point favorite. And, I think right now, Dave, if you were going to look at the NFC, I'll go on a little side note here. Who would you say? Now, I think a week ago we all would have said San Francisco's the best team in the NFC, but if McCaffrey's dinged up, they're coming off a loss. They look pretty poor, really, in their last game. Philadelphia, I still don't think has played great football all season. I mean, are the Lions? I still think San Francisco is the best team. I think I would slip the Lions ahead of the Eagles right now in the NFC. They've
was
been really
Brad,
good on both.
Luckily for the San Francisco 49ers, the Dallas Cowboys do not have the Cleveland Browns defense, nor do the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, both of those defenses are good, but they're a tier or two below, that Cleveland Browns defense.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I think the Lions are one of the best teams in football. And they've played really well on both sides of the ball. I'm not a big Jared Goff guy, but in a perfect setting, Jared Goff can be a good quarterback. And right now it's a perfect setting. And so they're going into Baltimore. I'm not a big John Harbaugh guy, you know that. 3 points I thought was a lot to play against the Lions team who just beat Philadelphia a couple weeks ago, and they're a good football team. So I like what Dan Campbell's got going there. I'm riding the emotion and the wave that they're throwing out there right now, and I say they go get a win in Baltimore.
It's like next time you start talking about the Lions being the best team in the NFC, please tell me to put my earmuffs on. I'm like melting over here. I just don't even know what to make of this, because I think you're right on every single point that you've made about the Lions so far this year. And it's good to see you sort of come around to no-Cal Jared Goff a little bit as well. I had planned on taking the Ravens in this one. I just, more out of spite again, because I can just see where this is all going to end up. In a year or 2 or 3, the Detroit Lions are going to have a Super Bowl championship. They're going to have a trophy. They'll be in the Super Bowl, and I'll still be remembering the time Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and thinking about how much time I've invested in the Minnesota Viking organization throughout my life. It's just tough when you see another team in the NFC North get better, and it's hard to admit it, but I agree. I'm coming around. I like the offense a lot. I'm going to go ahead and agree with you and take Detroit on the road. The Ravens just haven't figured out their new offensive strategy yet. And for the life of me, I don't understand how a new offensive coordinator can come in and look at the statistics from the previous years that the Ravens had on offense and simply say, we're just going to blow it all up. Just makes no sense. They should have, tweaked it, but they shouldn't have blown it all up. And then furthermore, I mean, he doesn't really have any wide receiver help outside of Zay Flowers. So I'm going to agree with you and take the Lions. I'm flipping.
Good for you, Dave. It's about time you flipped. I mean, come on. I know you're going to be talking nothing but Lions the rest of the year.
That's right. That's right. You won't see me wearing a Lions hat.
And by the way, you said
or any Lions gear, but this hoodie is Detroit Lions colors.
Yes,
so.
But yeah, I found it interesting that you said how much you'd invested in your life in the Vikings, and then I look behind you and I go, boy, you've invested a lot. You got it's like the wall of shame there behind you.
It's the total wall of shame. Except for maybe hard to see the Golden State Warriors puzzle pieces, which is a fan giveaway. Anyways, all right, moving on. I feel like I've got a lot of bad football on my list this week. on my top 5 that we're going to cover. Bills at the Patriots. Buffalo is favored by 8.5. This is my threat to Buffalo, though I'm sure they don't care. This is the last time I'm picking Buffalo this year, at least against the spread. They should absolutely beat the Patriots on the road by 8.5. After seeing what happened at home against the New York Football Giants, I was a little surprised that the line was as big as it is heading into this game. But I mean, the Patriots are, for all intents and purposes, a mess. The only way they could, get anywhere near 500 is if they got to play the Raiders every week, which they don't get to do at this point. I'm taking the Bills on the road against the Patriots and giving up the points.
Yeah, I'm going to make this short and sweet and say I agree with you. I mean, I know that there's a mini rivalry there between those two organizations. They don't really like each other very much. But the Patriots look like it's over, Dave. I mean, we've been talking about it for years and years, and it looks like the magic is gone. And, you just don't have any of those superstars there anymore. There's no Gronkowski, there's no Edelman, there's no Brady, there's no Teddy Bruschi, there's none of those guys. They're all gone. And so it's hard to win when you don't have that much talent. And, Ramondre Stevenson has not got the running lanes they thought he was going to have. Mac Jones has looked terrible. So, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to take the Bills. I just think that, the Bills have, they have one of those teams they can put up 21 points in about 5-7 minutes, and then the Patriots are lost. The game's over at that point.
Yeah. I mean, this is that game where I'm definitely worried because after seeing Buffalo's performance, Allen's got a shoulder issue, and I quote, it's going to be a pain management problem. So, he'll take some painkillers and he'll play through the pain that way. But it's just one of those things where at this point of the season, with where the Bills are in the standings, this is a must-win game for them, and they can't, lay an egg like they did. They should have lost that game at home against the Giants. So that's the only thing that makes this intriguing. Anyways, we'll move on to your next game.
Hey, I got the game of the week up next. It's the Dolphins at the Eagles. The Eagles are a 2-point favorite, coming off a pretty awful performance against the Jets. And, it's one of those things where, both these teams have great talent. I mean, there's a lot of talent on both these teams. I think maybe the Eagles might have a little bit more talent in terms of overall scope of things on both sides of the ball. But the Dolphins are, they're electrifying to watch. And I just think they're playing better football right now. The Eagles, we've been talking about it all year long. They really haven't played well. They've kind of sleptwalked through the first 6 weeks of the season. And they're a 2-point favorite, which, is, the odds makers are basically saying that they think the Dolphins have a shot at winning this game. So I'm going to agree with them. I think the Dolphins are just playing better football. I think this is a big game for them going on the road and playing in Philadelphia, which is a tough place to play. But I think they've got the kind of guys that enjoy that moment, the Tyreek Hills of the world. I think they enjoyed those moments of going and trying to prove somebody wrong. So I'm going to take the Dolphins and take the 2 points.
Yeah, this is the game I think maybe I'm looking forward to the most this next weekend. And I'm going to agree with most of what you said and also take the Dolphins in this one. I mean, Vic Fangio, I mean, he doesn't have the parts that he had when he was the head coach of the Denver Broncos, or even with the San Francisco 49ers. But, the Philadelphia Eagles are a team right now from an offensive perspective, which is pretty predictable. And so I think Vic Fangio will, do what they need to do to sort of prevent any of the big plays. And quite frankly, Jalen Hurts hasn't had a lot of them yet. And it's the big plays that could hurt the Dolphins in this game. I just believe enough in Vic Fangio to hold that to a minimum. And I think the Dolphins are going to win this one on the road, thus sending the Eagles to their second loss in a row.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? I mean, as much as everybody was basically calling them, 1A and 1B, them and the 49ers a week ago, there's a real good chance they could pick up their second loss this week, and then the people in Philadelphia are going to be jumping from the rooftops, wondering what the heck is wrong. So, but the Eagles, I think, will eventually get it right. There's too much talent there, but it seems as if the running game, remember last year they had such a great running game? It's not quite as great this year, Dave. There's not much there. I'm not seeing it. And so, other than the brotherly shove, which you know how much I hate the name of that thing, they just don't seem to have the consistent running game where they can just pound it at you, and then throw over the top. So,
all right. So, Brad, you admit that running backs are important. Running backs matter.
Running game. I said running game. I didn't say running back.
Because they let Sanders go, and
yeah, but Dave, I think a lot of it is defensive coordinators figure things out after a while.
Yeah. You're absolutely right about that.
They've made adjustments, and the Eagles now have to adjust to what the defensive coordinators have done, and they got to find ways to get other people the ball. Also, I think Dallas Goedert's lost a step. He used to be a big weapon for them, and he just really hasn't been where much to speak of all season long. So he was a pretty consistent piece of that offensive system last year, and I don't see him anywhere.
Is he turning into his predecessor, Zach Ertz?
Yes, exactly. They those guys that go over the middle a lot, they get hit a lot, and then all of a sudden they're not as anxious to go over the middle anymore.
Yep, and they lose a step, and it's just a slow thing, and before you know it, you're being traded to the Arizona Cardinals.
Right.
And that's exactly what happens. All right. So moving on, the San Francisco 49ers at the Minnesota Vikings. Oh, Brad, I forgot to mention this. Over the weekend, I had my big Milli Vanilli sighting, and actually met, I don't know which one was Millie and which one's Vanilli. But one has passed away and the other one's still alive. And there was a documentary, which is actually coming out on Paramount Plus next week. So we got to go to it and see it. And then my wife totally had a fangirl moment with, the surviving member of Milli Vanilli. And I brought this up, to just a bunch of people to see if they even knew who Milli Vanilli was. And if you are not in your 50s, you probably really don't remember what the whole Milli Vanilli thing was. Anyways, absolutely no point to this. Moving on, 49ers at the Vikings. This is a Monday Night Football game. Over under 44. We all know that Kirk Cousins is going to struggle because it's a primetime game. And we also know he's going to struggle because there's no Justin Jefferson. What we don't know right now is whether or not Christian McCaffrey is going to play. And we don't know if Deebo Samuel is going to be able to play. The San Francisco 49ers have a wide variety of other sort of injuries. I mean, I'm totally confident that the 49ers are going to win this game. And I think the Viking offense is going to get on track enough that I'm actually going to surprise a lot of people out there and go with the over in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other direction. I don't see the Vikings getting on track. I see Vikings getting sacked. How's that? I don't. Yeah, I think it's a bad matchup for the Vikings. That 49er defensive line is really good. Without Jefferson, that's one big, option out of the offense. They don't run the ball very well at all, the Vikings. And so now the Niners are a little bit dinged up, and McCaffrey obviously is a big piece of that. But I'm going to go under. I don't see the Vikings scoring much more than 16, 17 points in this game. Which, would have the 49ers at, 47, 27, 28, something like that. So I'm going to take the under in this one. I thought it was a little bit high for a defense that can be as dominating at times as the Niners defense can be. The Vikings don't really stop anybody, but they managed to play some pretty decent defense last week against the Bears. So hopefully they can bring it 2 weeks in a row for me.
Yeah, I mean, what I sort of think about this is, the Vikes probably aren't going to win the game. The offense will probably score somewhere between 14 and 20 points, and but they will give up a pick six along the way, give up a fumble. Like the 49er offense will sort of get back on track. I mean, I could see the 49ers easily scoring 30 points in this game with like two of those touchdowns coming from their defense because of a Viking turnover. I mean, statistically, that's what this Minnesota Viking team has been about all year long. You just go and spot the other team 7. Like they should just start this game. San Francisco 7, Minnesota 0. I mean, that's what they did with Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, we got another over-under next, and it's the same exact number, 44. It's the Steelers at the Rams. I'm going to go the under in this thing. I think the Steelers are woeful offensively, but they have enough defense where they can keep this thing close at SoFi. And so I thought 44 was a little bit rich for this game. The Steelers, when they play well and they win, it's because they've won with their defense. The offense really hasn't shown up much all season long. So I'm going to take the under at 44.
The Steelers haven't earned the right for us to take an over. And the Rams have definitely, you were sort of on this early in the season where you suspected that the Rams were going to be a better team than a lot of other people thought. So I'll give you some credit for that. The Steelers and we'll be sitting here in week 17 and Tomlin will be sniffing 500, and it's just a bad offense. They still can't run the ball. Kenny Pickett is, let's just say it is for all intents and purposes, is not going to be the long-term solution for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's just a bit of a mess on the offensive side of the ball. Love the Steeler defense, but I'm with you. I'm taking the under in this one.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on Kenny Pickett. I wanted him to be good. Local kid, played at Pittsburgh, and the whole thing. But in fairness, that offensive line is not very good. When the Steelers are great and have been great over the years, it's because they've dominated teams in the trenches, that tough kind of blue collar Pittsburgh sort of thing. And they're just not that tough right now up front on offense. And every time Najee Harris gets the ball, he's got a guy on him 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So it's tough to watch offensively. Somehow they got to get it turned around. They got to draft a bunch of really good offensive linemen Otherwise, they're going to ruin that kid's career, and Kenny Pickett's going to be gone.
I mean, they already have. I mean, it's same thing's been going on for 2 years now. And then they stuck with the same offensive coordinator, and I'm sure he's a nice guy, but like clearly a change is needed by the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point. Speaking of, though, good quarterbacks that had bad weeks, Baker Mayfield. Oh, you know how I love my Baker Mayfield. Brad, his press conference was absolutely fantastic. He is the opposite of like Zach Wilson last year, where Zach Wilson would have had like the absolutely terrible game, the same game that Baker Mayfield just had last week. And Zach Wilson would have got up and basically said, "Oh, yeah, I was okay. It was the rest of the team's fault." Baker Mayfield gets up and says, "I sucked." and so did everybody else. And he took ownership for it. And I think they're going to, flip the switch this week and turn things around. I feel so bad for Arthur Smith in Atlanta, because he's an offensive genius. That the guy has some weird, cool offensive genius style plays, and he just doesn't have the right tools to run them. This Ritter kid is not going to make it in the National Football League. I would love to be wrong, but the jury is completely out on him as far as I'm concerned. So in this particular game, the Bucs are favored by 2.5, and I'm taking Baker and the boys at home.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. Just because I think the Buccaneers defense is really good. And I think they do cause problems for Desmond Ritter, who's, he's still a young kid. He hasn't played a lot of football, and they put a few pieces around him now. And so, we'll see. The next 6 to 8 weeks is going to be really critical for that kid's career.
Yeah.
And so, I still think that the tight end they drafted a couple of years ago has been a huge disappointment. You could argue whether or not they've thrown him the ball enough or not, but I remember the kid coming out and everybody thought he was going to be the greatest tight end ever, and he really hasn't done anything since he's been in the league. So, every now and then, I think he had a touchdown last week. It was his first one of the year. The Falcons are still a young team. They're growing. It's actually, a more intriguing game than it would have been a year ago. But I'm with you. I think the Buccaneers, they're a decent team. I like Baker Mayfield's leadership. I still think he's an inconsistent player. He's a fun Derek Carr to watch. I mean, as I sit there and I watch Derek Carr right now down 17-6 to the Saints in the third, or to the Jaguars in the third quarter. But Baker is fun. He does make things interesting, and it's nice that they have somebody that's got that candid approach. But I would just soon have a guy that was a little more consistent throwing the football.
I love it. I can't. I mean, that's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, of course, you would want to have somebody with better skills than Baker Mayfield. I mean,
great interview doesn't always equal Super Bowl win.
That is absolutely very true. Because, like, if you go back tonight, Brad, you're having trouble sleep, go back tonight and pull up the Matt Rule introductory press conference for the Carolina Panthers. I mean, you'll be so motivated. You'll believe in the Carolina Panthers after you watch that, and then you see what actually happens. I don't want to be so hard on Ritter. I will pull back a little bit, give the kid another 6 or 7 weeks, as you suggested. Maybe there's something there. I just haven't
you gave Thurston Howell a second chance.
And he's been great. Sam Howell has had maybe one bad game so far. How many good games has Ritter had?
Hey, Desmond Ritter, until last week, had never lost a home game since high school.
That's right.
All right, I'm going to go to my final one here, Dave. It's another intriguing game. It's the Los Angeles Chargers at the Kansas City Chiefs. Two teams that have had kind of mixed results so far. The Chiefs, I think, are still one of the best teams in the AFC. They haven't really looked like it that much, but they're at home against, a Charger team that they just got to be kicking themselves, Dave. It's every week. It's getting to be kind of ridiculous now, the moves by Brendan Staley. And, you got to wonder at what point does he lose the team? I could see the Chiefs kind of getting on them, and then all of a sudden there's just, a complete letdown on the part of the Chargers. It's a big game for them. They got to, you don't ever want to start 2-4. And I just think the Chiefs at home they're just kind of ready to put things together. It seems like it's almost that time now. You remember, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, those two teams played on Monday Night Football, and I think it was both of them scored close to 50, if I recall. I don't see that happening this time. I think the Chiefs are going to win this thing comfortably and beat that 5.5 spread.
Hey, when do the Chargers have a bye? Do you happen to know when that is?
I can look it up for you.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if this just plays into your Brandon Staley needs to be fired immediately.
Well, I'm not like you. I'm not that guy that's going to say, he's going to get fired at halftime or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at their schedule. I'm having a hard time pulling up when they have their bye. They already had their bye, Dave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Anyways, look, I was sort of surprised by the spread amount here. I thought maybe it'd be a little bit higher. The Chiefs have been, they've been good enough times. They made a big trade this week. I don't know if you saw it, with the New York Jets, bringing back Hardman. Because Hardman was getting no playing time with the New York Jets, and he'll be essentially the number 2 wide. He'll at least get playing time.
How happy is he right now? He just went from playing with Zach Wilson to going and playing with Patrick Mahomes.
Well, and on top of it, he got them to pay him a significant amount of money that Kansas City wasn't really willing to pay him at the time. So it's a positive for him all over the place. And he got to be on Hard Knocks. So, he can say he was there for Aaron Rodgers' first start with the New York Football Jets. So I looked at this game, and I'm with you. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Look, this could turn into a classic AFC West shootout, which would be so much fun if it did. I just think Kansas City's going to end up on top of that.
Here's another one. Here's another point I'd like to make, Dave. At what point do we decide that Justin Herbert's not a great quarterback? Has he ever won a big game? No. The answer is no. He never has. And you can't make that throw at the end against the Cowboys. I'm sorry, you just can't make it and call yourself a great quarterback. That's a terrible throw at the worst.
How would you compare him to his predecessor, Phillip Rivers?
Phillip Rivers was a gamer. And Phillip Rivers was smart. Herbert's got all the skills in the world that Rivers didn't have. But Rivers knew how to win games.
So statistically, I saw this the other day. Herbert's, first couple years in the NFL versus Phillip Rivers, and their stats are almost identical. And And I think it's a really fair question. I think we throw terms around like great, like too much to begin with. Okay, let's just be honest. Who are the great quarterbacks in the National Football League today? I'll go first. Patrick Mahomes.
Well, Aaron Rodgers, but he's not. No, man. I mean,
Right?
I don't know that there are any guys playing great this year. The numbers have been down a little bit for quarterbacks this year. There's no question about it. Tua has had a great start to the year. I don't know that I'd call him great, but he's had a great start. He could end up leading the league in a lot of categories at the end of the year. So, but he doesn't come with that pizzazz and that flair that Mahomes brings, or Josh Allen at times. But Josh Allen doesn't win big games when it matters.
He almost loses to the Giants at home. He has basically half of his games this year. He's just hasn't played well.
Jared Goff's had a good start, Dave.
Jared Goff has been great. This is why.
Hey, you know who is a kingmaker for quarterbacks? I decided that this week. Pete Carroll makes guys play well at quarterback. Look at where Russell Wilson had his best years with Pete Carroll. Geno Smith was nobody until he came to Pete Carroll. Look at all the quarterbacks that he had that won when he was at SC. This guy he makes quarterbacks great. I believe that.
Yeah. Well, I think he, part of it is his defenses usually are pretty good. That plays a big part in the quarterback success. Look, Geno Smith, I wouldn't have anywhere near a great quarterback conversation, but I would say he's a good quarterback, and he's a good enough quarterback to actually win a Super Bowl. For God's sakes, if Brad Johnson can, Geno Smith certainly could win a Super Bowl. So,
Dave, in the last year and however many weeks we've played now of this year, 6 weeks, so like the last 22, 23 games,
yeah,
Geno Smith has been a top 5 quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Joe Burrow's not doing it this year, right?
But you don't think like Brock Purdy's a great quarterback, do you?
I think Brock Purdy's in a really good spot.
Yeah.
And I think he's a quality quarterback. I think there's a long ways before I can call him great. I mean, I just haven't seen enough yet. You got to win a few more big games
on
for
the
me.
Minnesota Vikings, and are they better with Brock Purdy than Kirk Cousins?
I don't know that the Vikings I think Cousins is better in that offense because Cousins has got a stronger arm than Brock Purdy, and that offense demands that you get the ball out and throw it hard. Purdy, that offense that he's playing in is a little bit different. It's not a press the ball downfield sort of offense. And so I think they're both in the system that they belong in, which, leads you to, the next argument would be, was Brady a system quarterback or was he a great quarterback?
Yeah. If you just saw me shaking my head, it's just because I was about to say, how bad is Derek Carr? Anyways, moving on. I mean, literally, the running back goes deep for a pass, and Carr throws it short. It was just ugly. All right.
Is Derek Carr a great quarterback?
Oh, hell no. But I always thought he was a good quarterback, But I also think there's, when you actually really get down to each of these quarterbacks' games, and he's been in the league long enough now. He's good at the dink and dunk. He's good at, the plays that work. It's when the plays break down where Derek Carr has always had trouble, and it continues. Don't throw too many audibles at him. I mean,
check down Charlie. He's become a check down Charlie, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And he's been like that for a really, really long time. All right. Moving on. Last game of the week. The Raiders at the Bears. Raiders are, sorry about this game, Brad. Raiders are favored by 3 on the road. Josh McDaniels is saved his job for a little while longer. And no word yet. I suspect that the starting quarterback for the Bears won't be there. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Raiders on the road, mainly because of Mason Crosby.
Dave, I think this is a game where neither one of the starting quarterbacks is going to be available. But I like Brian Hoyer as a backup for the Raiders. I'm not a Jimmy Garoppolo fan. I'm post Garoppolo excitement. I just don't think he's a great football player. He's even less predictable than Derek Carr, the guy we just talked about. And so I think Hoyer has kind of re-energized them a little bit. And, Max Crosby and that defense played really well this last week. I'm going to agree with you. I think it's a good week for the Raiders at the Bears, who I don't think are a very good football team at all. And I see a lot of sacks for Max Crosby and a lot of Bears fans leaving the stadium early in Chicago this week. So I'm gonna take the Raiders. I'm gonna give that 3 on the road.
Yeah, I wonder how well the Raiders are going to travel to Chicago. I wonder if that game's really going to be truly sold out because of Raider fans, because we do know, they are the traveling nomads of the National Football League.
Dave, can you tell me who the backup quarterback is in Chicago?
I saw him play last week. Hillman.
All I know is on the Chicago Bears depth chart right now on ESPN, it lists Tyson Bagent as the number 2 guy.
Yeah, so it's Bagent, and he went to like a Division 2 or 3 school.
Dave, I've never heard of Tyson Bagent. I watch more football than any human alive. Okay.
Yeah, no, look at it. Look at the school that he went to, and you will have never heard of that either.
Well, I probably have.
I thought this is a made up university, and then I just didn't care enough to look into it. I just decided to let it slide. Check it seriously. Look at the name of the school he went to.
I'm trying to find it right now, and I can't even find it, to be honest.
Does he even have a Wikipedia page?
Martinsburg? Where does Martinsburg? Honestly, Dave, I never have heard of Martinsburg.
I'm telling you, they said it during the Vikings Bears game last week, and I was like, wait, what? But well, what? But his dad is famous. And I remember this from the game. His dad was I doubt he still is, but was the world champion of arm wrestling. So that was
no, he grew up in Martinsburg. Sorry, Dave. I'm having a hard time. He grew up in Martinsburg, Western Virginia, went to Martinsburg High School.
Okay. College?
I'm still trying to
in Colorado someplace, I think.
I'm not sure. I'm having a hard time finding it, Dave, but
well,
this by the way should not be Shepherd. He went to Shepherd. That's where he went.
And where's Shepherd located?
I don't know.
So bad. All right. Well, there you go. We've got your top 10 games worth actually spending some money on. for week 7. We definitely got derailed. Mr. Hoyes, any final comments as we head into this weekend?
Yes. Tyson Bagent was the Mountain East Conference Offensive Player of the Week one week.
I had no idea there was a
University or whatever it was. Yes. That's my final words. So good luck there. I think I'm going to take the Raiders. That's solidified my Raider pick, Dave.
There you go. All right. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Gods of Odds. We are midway through the 3rd on Thursday Night Football, and Jacksonville should win this game, but who knows? All right. Well, anyways, moving on. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave DeBopp in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.